Kia ora, everyone. We'll just wait a minute or two or three as we let people into this webinar today. That's what that beeping sound is, letting in more attendees. Thank you for joining us. We'll just wait another minute or two to let more people in as they start to join us. Okay, I think we'll get started. Thanks for your time today and welcome to the Supplier Onboarding webinar to learn ways to ensure your investment in e-invoicing pays off. Let's start with our MB's karakia. Ta whia te mana kia mau kia maia. Ka huri taku aro, kei te pai kahurangi, kei reira te orongo moku. Ma mahi tahi, ka oa, ka pūwai, a mātou mahi katoa, ka puna, ka tika, tihei Māori ora. Thank you for joining me today to learn about change management activities, but mostly about onboarding your suppliers so you can make your investment in invoicing pay off. The more you send and receive invoices, the more you and your trading partners reap the benefits that invoicing brings. I see we have attendees from both the private and government sectors on the call, including many councils. So thanks for joining. My name is Linda Moore and I'm part of the eInvoicing team here at the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. Also joining me today are my colleagues Andrew Cook and Alison Smith. Now just for a little bit of housekeeping, we will send out a copy of this presentation after the webinar. It'll contain links of relevance which Alison Smith, our adoption advisor, will be pasting into the chat throughout the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and it will be saved on our website, which we will share a link with you in 2 or 3 weeks. The call presentation is about 30 minutes and the remainder of the time will be to work through your questions. If you do have questions that remain unanswered at the end, please redirect them to our email address, which is eInvoicing@mbie.govt.nz. Just of particular note, when you are asking questions, please use the Q&A function, not the chat function. This will help us triage your questions more effectively. Andrew may enter answers to some of these during the session, so do look out for the answers. Now, before we get started, it'll be great to get your answers to a couple of questions. I'll let you share the screen, Andrew, and Alison is putting the link in the chat to this quick poll. Your answers to these will help us in knowing what areas we should put some focus on during this session. Hopefully you're able to. How are those looking, Andrew?
Listen to see, good to see we've got 5 that are live and doing it. Right, shall we move across to the next one?
Noting I can't see that screen.
So the next question is, what is your biggest supplier onboarding barrier right now? Identifying which suppliers are e-invoicing capable seems to be quite common.
Okay, good to know. All right.
In fact, the majority. And the runner-up being, at this stage, internal change management and training. Very interesting.
Okay, cool. All
Thank you
right.
for sharing that, everybody.
I might just have to share my screen again. Just excuse me for a moment while I do that. Okay, all right. Well, there's probably a few of you today that may not be ready to onboard your suppliers, but it will certainly give you some tips on what you can do to get ready for that. So it's all very well to have implemented e-invoicing capability, but for you to get the benefits for your organisation, you need to transition your trading partners, in this case, your suppliers, from sending PDF invoices to sending you e-invoices. We recommend you allocate time and resource to make this happen. This could be internally or your access point provider or service provider. For example, your OCR provider may be able to offer these services. To be successful in getting suppliers on board also means you need to get your people on board. By onboarding suppliers, you're increasing the likelihood that they will send invoices to other organisations, thus embedding invoicing into our economy. To be successful in supplier onboarding means you need to get your people on board. So change management is key to being successful. Identify who your change leaders are early on and make use of the MB resources to guide you. So Alison would have put some links into a change management guide and a supplier communications toolkit. So these have both been developed after years of learning working with government. They help you get a running start. So I recommend you download these useful resources. Alison has put the links to these in the chat. We've also developed a simpler supplying onboarding guide, which has specific messages relevant to government agencies. So that includes councils. So it may not be appropriate, relevant for private organisations in the private sector, but it will still give you some tips on communicating with your different groups of suppliers. So for this specific one for government agencies, it includes messages about paying invoices within 5 days and the expectation that large suppliers must send to government agencies from January 2027. So this is more of a no-frills guide, and it's best used to get a few quick wins on board. We haven't published this on our websites, but we will email this out to you along with this presentation. What's also really important is having strong and visible sponsorship and leadership from within your organisation. So identify and empower your champions early on. Our observation is that organisations with champions have been more successful today than those without. So really important. I'll now cover off some of what the changes could be for your people. although some of what we're proposing is really reasonably simple, we know that even the smallest changes can meet resistance from some of your people. So the basic premise of e-invoicing is data is received directly into your finance system. PDF invoices will not be emailed or posted. So your people will need to get used to not receiving an email with a PDF invoice. And they should learn how to identify invoice data in your finance system. Note that you can receive PDF attachments with your e-invoice. They can be sent through the e-invoicing network along with the data for the invoice itself, but it won't be emailed to your people. Some invoice data in your finance system may look different and may be in a different place or presented differently. The other thing to point out is that receiving an invoice doesn't mean it's automatically approved. So e-invoicing is just another delivery mechanism for transmission and receipt of your invoices. So your approval and processing processes won't change. The experience for your suppliers when sending invoices may differ as well, depending on the software that they use. So, for example, a supplier using Xero will have a different experience than one that uses Technology One. So, analysing your supplier base will be important, and we'll provide some tips on how to analyse your suppliers later. Alison previously shared links to the Change Management Guide and the Supplier Onboarding Guide. They both contain checklists and sample communication material, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The sample checklist on the screen is probably a little bit hard to read. However, I recommend checking out these pre-change tasks. For example, getting your supplier master data in order, doing supplier analysis to identify quick wins, preparing your internal communications, updating your finance operational guides, and collecting and validating your suppliers' NZBNs. This is something we've said in other webinars about NZBN data, and we'll continue to emphasise it. It's something you can do regardless of where your organisation is at on their invoicing journey. And it's just good data hygiene practice to have your supplier master data in good order. So there's some things that are really helpful. So I do recommend you download these guides. As I mentioned earlier, getting your people on board is key. So please focus on communicating with your people. Promote or raise awareness of your organisation's preference to receive and maybe send invoices to. Have you used leadership forums to do this? Intranet news articles, email communications to your coders, improvers, and requisitioners. Have drop-in sessions, and please be free to share the MB resources, including the webinar recordings. Next, I'll move on to supplier onboarding. There are 3 supplier groups that can provide you with some quick wins. Suppliers already sending to other government agencies, suppliers who are using Xero or MYOB, and suppliers who are already registered to receive e-invoices. I'll talk through each of these separately. To benefit from these quick wins means you'll not likely need a data analyst or an Excel guru. They're best suited to comparing data sets by generating a list of your suppliers with their NZBN, remittance email address, and invoice volumes, and then match your own lists to the resources that we can provide. I'll share more on these data sets shortly. Your service provider, OCR provider, or invoice scanning provider may also be able to assist with some of this analysis and subsequent onboarding activities. But first, I'll talk about the information you should provide to your suppliers, which is generally covered in the communication toolkit, but I'll cover it briefly here. So regardless of which groups of suppliers you engage with, it's important that you provide them with your NZBN. Remember, it's your NZBN that makes sure that the invoices they send you reach you and get into your finance system. The other thing you should provide them is your invoice reference requirements. So if you need purchase orders or buyer's reference information, then you need to provide that to them as well. It's a good opportunity to remind your suppliers what information you need on an invoice when you communicate with them about e-invoicing. Now, note the Invoice Reference Requirements Guide may be useful for some government agencies to provide to their suppliers when sending invoices for the first time, so they can see what other government agencies may require. So remember, you can provide your suppliers with guidance material like that specific to Xero or MYOB. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the information you'll need to provide to your suppliers. Right. First of all, let's talk about those suppliers that are already sending to government agencies. They may also be your suppliers. And you might not be a government agency, you may be a private organisation, and some of these suppliers might be sending to you. So we collate a list of these suppliers and we publish it on the eInvoicing website and we update it at least quarterly. There are approximately 600 suppliers on the list. And those from government agencies may recall we ask you to provide your list of suppliers sending you e-invoices as part of the quarterly payment survey. So the great thing about this group of suppliers is that you don't need to educate them on what e-invoicing is or how to send e-invoices because they're already doing this. So we've developed an email template tailored for this group that you can pick up and use straight away. Next are the suppliers who use Xero or MYOB platforms. So invoicing capability is native for those using those two platforms. So it's already built into their accounting package and there's no extra cost to them. So it's all part of the subscription. So it's very easy for them to switch to e-invoicing and send you invoices today. We've heard time and time again from businesses that this is a good way to get runs on the board and provide confidence to your internal teams. We've also heard many instances of where Xero users will just start sending you invoices as soon as you're live without telling you that they will do so. This is because their user interface for invoicing will let Xero users know if their customers can receive e-invoices. So it's relatively easy to identify those suppliers that use these platforms in your accounts payable inbox, presuming you have a centralized inbox. We've found that about 10 to 20% of invoices received by government agencies are from Xero or MYOB users, and it's significantly more for councils who transact with local businesses. We have a how-to guide that allows you to search Outlook for organisations using Xero and MYOB, and Alison has put this in the chat. So as well as Xero and MYOB having their own online help services, we've also developed step-by-step guides for each platform, again, which Alison would have pasted into the webinar chat. So you can link to or download and attach the relevant Get Started guide to the email that you send to those suppliers. These guides are also really useful for your accounts payable people. It gives them an understanding of the customer experience for those suppliers using Xero or MYOB. And again, we've developed an email template tailored for this group. You can use the remittance advice email address to contact these suppliers. Also consider doing outbound follow-up calling to get commitment from the supplier to act on sending their next invoice as an e-invoice. There's been a couple of government agencies that have done this with success, for example, Treasury and MB. There's something to watch out for suppliers who do use Xero. As already mentioned, Xero users can send eInvoices today and it's free of charge. If you require your suppliers to include purchase order numbers on invoices, then you need to understand how Xero's reference field works and what your suppliers need to do to ensure the purchase order is mapped to the right place in your finance system. If Xero users don't put the correct prefix, then it may be mapped to the wrong place in your finance system. Xero offers guidance and online help for this, and Alison would have put the link to this in the chat. Essentially, your suppliers need to prefix the relevant reference before adding the reference number. For example, if you require a contract number, you will ask your supplier to prefix the number with CN colon, or if it's a purchase order, then prefix with PO colon. So your suppliers are human, so it's possible that despite you providing them instructions, they still might get it wrong. So you may want to consider implementing business rules to map the purchase orders to the right place in your finance system. This is something Lisa Archbold outlined in last week's Implementing eInvoicing Receive capability webinar. So if you want to learn more, the recording will be available on our website in March. So just to watch out there, something for you to be aware of. Right, the next quick win are those suppliers already registered to receive eInvoices. So this is one of the number one questions we get as well, is how do I know which my trading partners can send or receive eInvoices? Not always, but if they're registered to receive, then they're highly likely to be able to send as well. Again, they're more likely to have a bit of an understanding of what eInvoicing is, so you're not having to educate them. And there's more than 50,000 businesses who are registered and growing each month. And remember that thousands of more businesses have access to eInvoicing ready software products now. So there's 64 other software providers, products out there that have eInvoicing capability. Now, we publish this list of registered businesses on our eInvoicing website each month. It contains the legal name of the business as specified in the NZBN directory and their NZBN number. The columns have filters for region and sector. So if you just want to see which businesses are registered for eInvoicing in your region, you can filter by that. And then you can match them to your own list. Again, we've developed an email template tailored for this group. So really 3 easy groups that should give you some quick wins. Now, not a quick win, but real productivity gains come with volumes. But dealing with large suppliers tend to be also more complex. They're like a large ship that takes time to turn around compared to smaller ships, i.e. the Xeros and the MYOBs, who are much more nimble to change direction. We recommend that you let all your suppliers know that your preference is for them to switch to eInvoices and that you prefer to receive eInvoices, and then consider engaging with maybe 1 or 2 key high volume suppliers to start with. In some cases, you may need to re-engineer your business processes depending on how you capture and process invoice data from significant suppliers like telcos, who have a large volume of transaction information. We can connect you with key contacts at various organisations, including government agencies, for testing and or liaising for onboarding. So I recommend that you test, learn, adapt, and move on to your next large supplier. We have some template emails tailored for large suppliers that government agencies can use. those government agencies who must require their large suppliers to send invoices under the government procurement rules. So as well as general direct communications to your suppliers, there are also lots of other supplier touch points that can be used to promote that your preference is to receive e-invoices from them. Just a little bit of a side note, the language we recommend you use in your communications is "we prefer." This will be our standard practice going forward. Try and avoid using wishy-washy language like if you're interested, be really strong about what your preference is and what your desired future state looks like. Now, in your instructions to your suppliers, provide them with your NZBN. When someone asks you to, when you ask someone to email you, you provide them with your email address, right? So when you ask them to send you an e-invoice, provide them with your NZBN. They need to know where it's going to be delivered to. Now, remittance and purchase orders advices, they usually go to the accounts people of your suppliers, the very same ones that usually send invoices on behalf of their organisation. So they're the best ones to convert to e-invoicing. Get your new suppliers sending e-invoice from the get-go, so it just becomes the standard. So ensure your new supplier onboarding material is updated and your people are also ready for this. We have an e-invoicing capable badge that you can download and add that into your email signatures for your accounts payable people or other relevant finance supplier accounts people in your organisation. You can also add some rules to your centralised inbox that can send an auto response to those that send Xero or MYOB PDF invoices. We've got some tips on that in the communications toolkit. Another touch point is when suppliers are querying about where their payment is. They might have a centralised accounts payable queries inbox, and they're saying, hey, where's my payment? And they've probably sent PDFs. So it's an opportunity to let them know if they send invoices, they won't be lost within your organisation. They've gone straight into your finance system, and therefore they're much cleaner and likely to be paid faster. So use every touch point that you can. Repetition and consistency really helps drive the message to your suppliers. Right, we're nearly there at that time for questions. Before that, let's just talk about 2 quarterly forums that we run that you may be interested in participating in, depending on whether you're from the private sector or in government. So the e-invoicing community of practice, or ECOP, as we call it, is for the private sector, and the procure to pay community of practice, P2P COP, is for government. Both forums are for knowledge sharing and networking for attendees in financial operational type roles. And we mostly talk about e-invoicing journeys in the ECOP, but we also discuss other digital initiatives of relevance. The P2P COP also includes discussions about payment times. Both forums are really useful for collectively solving problems. The next ECOP is the 19th of March, and the next P2P COP is on the 31st of March, which may be of interest to councils who have already started their prompt payment and e-invoicing journeys. Please email us if you'd like to attend either of these forums. And now it's time for your questions. So remember, just use the Q&A function for your questions, not the chat function. And again, if we run out of time, you can email our team with your questions. Hopefully you're suitably equipped to get suppliers to send you e-invoices. And if you have other successful approaches that we haven't talked about today, we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing now and we will begin with the questions.
Linda, Andrew here. No questions yet. So there's about 107 of you out there. So Come on. I mean, Linda's presentation was great, but you must have some questions, so fire away, please. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here in awkward silence, making small talk with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I could start filling the gap a little bit. One thing we didn't talk about a lot in this webinar is about the large end of town when you've got more complex, larger suppliers. It's in lots of volume, but by the nature of their business, they're usually more complex. So we will consider thinking about whether we have a webinar just focusing on what are some ways to help get those suppliers on board. So yeah, a bit of a watch out for that. Yeah, gosh, no questions. I'm interested.
Well, that could very well be a compliment, Linda, because we've had a lot of questions in previous webinars, but maybe that indicates that what you've provided is so comprehensive, and everyone listening has got enough takeaways to consider. Oh, we have a post. Let's have a look. Yay. Linda, have you got the questions in front of you? We've got 2 questions.
Have we? Oh.
Yep. So Suzanne McGuinness, what has been the experience of agencies that are already receiving e-invoices that end both a PDF and an e-invoice? So
okay, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, so in some cases, and hopefully I'm interpreting this question correctly, but in some cases, there's suppliers that send e-invoices and then sometimes back to PDF invoices via email, or sometimes they do both. And that can cause a little bit of friction with your AP team in terms of duplication of effort. Usually there's controls in place to ensure these things don't get through, but and so this comes down to the change management piece, really. It's I don't know, Linda, anything further to add on that one?
Yeah, you're right. So again, this is your people who deal with the suppliers directly, and they go, "Oh, send me a PDF because I want to see what it says." And in the meantime, an e-invoice has turned up in the finance system. And Andrew's right. If you're the people in your organisation also send on that PDF to AP team, it ends up being duplicated. One thing you could say to your suppliers is if they we shouldn't really encourage this, but they could add on when they email a PDF to their contact within the organisation as to say this has already been sent as an e-invoice, or label it that way to do that. But it's yeah, you do want to start getting your people used to not receiving a PDF via email, and reassure them that they will be able to see the e-invoice in the finance system. So, and it won't get approved until somebody within the business unit has approved it. So, yeah, it results in duplicate invoices for your finance team. So it's not great practice. Now, Katie has asked, what are the dates of the ECOP and PCOP? So the 19th of March is the ECOP and the 31st of March is the P to PCOP.
The next one from Vicky Lee McCoy is a tricky one to answer, actually. How do you deal with suppliers that do consolidated invoices with multiple purchase orders referenced on them? Interestingly, we're about to establish a working group to look at exactly this sort of thing, because it can be quite complicated, because these things often require business process change, which means there's often multiple stakeholders within an organisation you need to get across the line, which takes effort, and sometimes there can be conflict. So there's no short answer to this one.
We don't have the answers on that one, but please watch the space. We are, we are. It's on our work program. Yeah,
it absolutely is.
Fiona has asked, I believe there's a list of large suppliers coming from NZGP, info from IRD to support identification. No, no, there isn't. Sorry, Fiona. We haven't been able to obtain a list from IRD of which suppliers fit into that criteria to send invoices to government from January next year. But Andrew has another plan. Another way.
Plan. No, so of course the company's office is part of MB, and it came to our attention that they actually had the reporting criteria or the fields available, and we have actually captured what we believe is quite a reliable view of that data, Fiona. So, and probably the next quarterly government payment time survey, I'm looking to collect the top supplier list from each agency, like top 100, or maybe more, consolidate that, and then reference it, and then send it back to you so that you have a list. So that's the plan, but it's months away.
Yeah, so again, a work in progress. But feel free to do some of your own internal work to see if there are to figure out if you probably have a good guess on who are your large suppliers that fit into that category.
Yeah.
Peter has asked, are there any councils out there sending invoices via payable, which is the payable invoicing network that we use? Andrew.
Short answer is no, Peter. And hi, Peter. It's been a while. We should catch up. Short answer, no. The reason being is most types of invoices that councils send have quite unique and specific reference requirements, and a lot of them are driven by regulations of sorts. So we're looking for pilot councils at the moment, but what we're finding is with councils on the other side of things, they're really the ones who are. But most of their traffic is actually from mild and zero users, and so the prize for them initially is on receiving invoices. But I'm meeting a large council next week actually to discuss sending invoices. So hopefully we'll get someone across the line soon, Peter.
The next question we have is from Joe. I'm not sure if we can answer this one. What should we do if our policy is to pay only upon a reconciled statement?
I have no idea how to answer that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess, Joe, I'm guessing that perhaps you're indicating that you're part of the government procurement rules requiring to pay within 10 days for standard invoices and 5 days for e-invoices. And so, but currently the way your policy works is that you may not be able to meet those standards. I'm guessing that might be. If you want to elaborate, we'll see if we can answer that. Liam has asked, how do we convince the more conspiracy-minded of our suppliers that e-invoicing isn't just being used by government to spy on transactions? Is there a resource that clearly explains who can see what's encrypted between each points, etc.? Great question. Well, I just, for the benefit of everyone on this call, you can be reassured that the government does not see the invoice data that goes through the invoicing network. We do not have access to that data. It's just a pipeline for e-invoices to reach the various endpoints, and we don't get access or see that. And you're also probably aware that the access point providers have to go through a rigorous accreditation process, which includes security aspects of using that network. So you can be reassured about that. We don't have a specific resource that clearly explains that. We might just take that away and see what you can do. We'll see what we can do in that space. Perhaps they're not your low-hanging fruit. If they're conspiracy-minded, then maybe invoicing is not for them to start with.
Right, next question from Alyssa Lamb. It's quite lengthy, so I'll try and paraphrase it. But essentially, the listed organisation has been unable to receive since November, and have been reaching out to vendors, but have had reasonably limited uptake. The question is, should they keep following the same formula? Well, one of the most successful things we've done in MB is what we call warm calling, which is identifying suppliers who we believe are candidates for e-invoicing and picking up the phone. And some of our team members did this and had a fantastic time. And I think we hit 10% of our inbound invoices within about 3 months of activity of doing that, mostly from mild and zero suppliers.
Yeah. We found that it's quite hard for people to say no when you're talking to them over the phone. And sometimes it's just about reassuring them about how to do it, and it's just that fear of change thing sometimes. So you could point them to our invoicing webinar that we've had for small, medium enterprises, specifically aimed at Xero and MYOB users. So for those that didn't attend that one, that was a couple of weeks ago, it's likely we'll run some more of those in the future, and we will publish the link to that recording in the next couple of weeks. So that could be something that you do. You could decide to have an event for your Xero and MYOB users and bring all the accounts people together. We've done an in-person event in the past. And that, again, it's just giving them reassurance of how easy it is to do. So you just might have to try a couple of different techniques. Yeah, so try some of those and see how you get on.
Quick one from Michelle from Inter Trade and Enterprise. Hi, Michelle. How often is the spreadsheet factors senders to government updated? Once a quarter. However, every now and then our e-invoicing champions across government will drip feed us additional suppliers, those that are doing active supplier onboarding, and as it builds, we sometimes do updates in between as well.
Okay, Nikita has asked, we are suppliers and we use Microsoft 365 Dynamic. Should we wait for our government agencies to confirm they're using payable and happy to accept e-invoices, or should we invest in getting one of those softwares like Xero or MYOB who should take the first step? I think, again, I'm not sure if people are aware of this as well. We do publish on the website all the government agencies that are registered to receive e-invoices, and it lists the name of that government agency and includes their NZBN and whether they can send and receive or both. So you can check that list to see if they're ready, and either get in touch with them and say you want to send invoices, or you could just fire one through and see what happens. So yeah, don't think you need to wait, but perhaps if they have complex requirements or you have complex situation, it might be good to get in touch with them on that directly. Can we please have the link to the supplier onboarding? Not sure if I missed it in the chat. These 2 onboarding ones that we've developed, one that I'm pretty sure Alison did put in the chat, which is a supplier communication toolkit. And then we've got a separate one which we're going to email out with this presentation, and that's aimed more for government agencies for them to use because it references 5-day payment and things like that. But you could, as a private organisation, could also use that. But there'll be an attachment that will go out in the email in the next couple of days.
I think we're just about there, Linda. Just about a little bit of feedback from Peter from Landcorp, saying that he's happy to pilot with the council.
Yes, so I know there are probably quite a few councils on this call. So if you're looking for some test partners, we have some here.
Yeah,
it's great.
I expect Landcorp receives invoices from a variety of councils across the country. Would be my expectation. But anyway, that looks like that's the end of the questions. right on 11:45, pretty much, Linda.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Cool.
thank you so much for attending the session today. I hope it's been really useful and given you some ideas on to get cracking on onboarding suppliers. Looking to hear how you go. So please give us feedback. Love to hear what's working, what's not. We'd love to do some more case studies in this space. So please do let us know if you have. If you have any success stories to share.
Yeah, nice one. All right, thank you.
Alrighty.